Welcome to the 8th episode of the season 11 of Productized Podcasts. In this season, we are talking about the future of our cities. What if cities cared more about the digital products and services and treated their citizens like customers they really want to retain? If the mayor would be the equivalent to the CEO, who would take the role of an eventual chief product officer? And more importantly, what transformations and improvements could this bring about for lives as citizens as a whole? So this is still the same podcast where innovators, geeks, creators, entrepreneurs come to discuss impactful ideas, and our mission is to inspire people to impactful action. My name is André. I'm your host today, and I have the enormous pleasure to be talking with Miguel Pinto Luz. I'm Miguel.
Right.
Miguel is the current Deputy Mayor of Cascais, a municipality west of Lisbon with over 200,000 inhabitants. Since 2005, he has held various public positions, both in central government, as Secretary of State for Infrastructure, Transport and Communications, and also and that was during the Portugal's 20th constitutional government. And now in his hometown of Cascais, Miguel holds a master's in electrical and computer engineering from at the Instituto Técnico from Lisbon, and he's currently teaching at Navarra School of Business and Economics. Miguel also has an MBA from IESE Business School, University of Navarra, and is currently developing a PhD in leadership at Rotterdam School of Management. His research topics include public service motivation, public servant leadership, and public sector governance. Miguel is a resident columnist in one of the largest public daily newspapers, at least until very recently. And every week he signs a rubric in a national radio station, TSF, called No Alinhados, or Non-Align in English. And he's frequently invited to comment on the main national media and national television networks. He has been developing a new vision for the future of cities, and with successful cases already implemented here in the beautiful city of Cascais, he's internationally recognized for his work, being invited as a keynote speaker around the world on the topic of smart cities and the future of democracy. Welcome, Miguel. Thank you for joining us today. How are you feeling?
Fine. Just with this beautiful view that we have here in Cascais, and a warm welcome to you all with this beautiful sky today. So I hope you will enjoy your stay here in Cascais.
We are already enjoying.
I hope so.
So this is a technological podcast. This is a tech podcast. Let me ask you, what was your first computer? Are you part of the ZX Spectrum generation?
Of course, Spectrum. Of course.
You had one when you were a kid.
My first computer was a ZX Spectrum, so 48K. So it was the first lines of code in BASIC were done in that computer. The first games that I've played were played in that computer. So that was the beginning of my tech career. So now I'm a politician, full-time politician, but my background is, of course, computer science and all this technology side of our lives. So I'm most engaged in all these topics. So, but answering your question, straightforward, it was my first of many computers after that one.
Did you play SimCity?
Yes, I've played SimCity.
So you always had the dream to be a mayor when you were kids, or?
It's not a dream, because my grandfather was a councillor here, so it was somehow embedded in my DNA. So I don't know how. Unfortunately, I never met my grandfather, because he passed away before I was born. So, but my grandfather used to be a councillor here, with issues like tourism, and tourism is one of my topics of work in a daily basis. My grandfather used to sit in the same place where I sit in city hall, in the town hall meetings. So somehow there's something in my DNA that tells me that I have to do something and give something back to my community. And my community is Cascais. As you have mentioned, I've held several positions both in central and local government, but these local government positions are the most impacting and the most motivating for me as individual. So because in the end of the day, I know that I design, I concept, I idealize, and then I can have impact in people's lives because I see all the things and the projects that I've invented, my staff and my team has developed, and I see them having impact in the quality of life of all the citizens, all the students, all the workers, all the visitors, in the end of the day, to all the Cascais locals. So these functions, these positions in local government are, I think, in the future of the humanity, the climate crisis, the governance crisis, even the gap between the body of voters and the electors, the lack of confidence, all these issues that we are talking about nowadays, I think the best way to solve them is through the local government. So because we are closer, we have a lean structure, and we are much more closer to the problems. We have an epidemic relationship with our citizens. So we are not in Lisbon, in the minister, designing a new environmental policy. We are here in the front line. So it's different in that sense.
So you have been working with current mayor, Mr. Carlos Cascais, since 2001. You have been working with the current mayor since 2001.
That's okay. I'm not listening.
Okay, sorry. I'm just going to. Okay. Is it better now?
Yes, better.
Okay,
much better.
Much better now. Okay. So I was asking you that you have been involved in local politics for a while, and specifically with the current mayor, Carlos Cascais, since 2001.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Correct.
So why did you decide to dedicate your life to public service?
I think part of the answer is, of course, my ancestors and my DNA. Of course, that's part of the answer. The other part of the answer is that there's something within myself that is keeping telling me that I need to transform and give something back to the society. And this is a call that I can't explain because I'm not a money-driven guy. Of course, if I would be a money-driven guy and choosing public positions, I would have only one way to do so, is to be a corrupt politician. I'm not a corrupt politician, so I'm not a money-driven guy. I'm of course an impact-driven guy. I'm of course a quality of life-driven guy. I'm of course a guy that is my fuel is the challenges that we are facing. For instance, to welcome all the refugees, the challenges of trying to transform the mobility in the city, trying to reduce all the emissions in the city, trying to give all the homeless a house, a home to live, trying to bring public schools to cope and to compete with private schools, because I believe in social mobility. And in the end of the day, we need good public schools delivering that kind of push in the beginning of our lives. So all these things together are the motto or the driving force for me to choose the public life and the public and to be a public servant, if you like more.
Mm-hmm. What aspects of your work are you most passionate about?
I'm an altruistic guy, but in the end of the day, after being a father, and I'm a father of, I have 3 and a 4, so in the end of the day, I think a public person like myself is always thinking on the world that we are giving back and the world that we are living to our kids. And I think the most stimulating side of this work is to know that everything that I do in a daily basis is somehow connected with the future of my kids, but also with the future of all kids of Cascais, future generations. So this dimension of future, of tomorrow, of designing the tomorrow for our kids, for the future generations, is for sure and definitely the most impacting and motivating factor in being in this position.
And as a segue, what part of your job as a vice president of the municipality of Cascais do you find it to be the most stressful? The one you maybe don't like so much?
Knowing that I can't solve all the problems, and it's an utopia to think that we could solve all the problems, but 20 years ago, I would live in that utopia. And I want to keep living in that utopia. And my staff knows that must live in that utopia. If we lose that utopia, that we can solve all the issues of the world, we'll stop having this momentum of trying to innovate in a daily basis. So job, because in the end of the day, we know that we are still having homeless people, that we know that the public school is not offering the social elevator and social mobility that it should do. In the end of the day, we know that the carbon dioxide emissions are still growing and we are trying to stop it, but it's almost impossible to do it in a flash. So we live in a paradox. The paradox that for motivating my staff, motivating myself, I must think that I can solve all the problems. So that's the motivation of my staff, of my team, of the entire municipality. But on the other side of the paradox, I know that that's impossible. And we live in this conflict, permanent conflict between these two sides. We want to solve all the issues, but in the end of the day, we know that it's impossible to solve all the issues.
And have to make choices.
That's a very interesting question, because I usually say that a politician, the image that I have of a politician, when you ask all the politicians, they would answer you that a politician is a leader, a politician is somehow an inspirator, a very charismatic guy that leads the people through the waters of the Red Sea. And I see a politician as a curator, actually. A curator as a curator of an art museum, because in the end of the day, you have assets, you have a portfolio, you have all the assets, namely talent, you have human resources, you have environmental resources, you have all the resources, and then you have to curate all those resources and give a nice picture for the citizens of your town, of your region, your country, your continent. And being a curator, and you know that the meaning of the word comes from trying to cure, trying to solve,
to heal,
of course. And in the end of the day, you should do all that with accountability. That's a dimension that an art curator doesn't have, or may have, but not as in a sense of a public person, because in the end of the day, we are accountable, and we are accountable to all the citizens that vote and don't vote on us. So the most clear picture that I have as a politician is to see myself as a curator.
So you have just been working for Cascais for over 20 years now, and you just got re-elected in September last year. Speaking about those priorities, those curation priorities, if you will, what have been your top priorities in the last 2 terms? Where have you curated the most?
I'm working on two. I'm working in several, but my priorities for the last 2 terms were for sure mobility and education. Education is something that I'm working on the last term, the last 2 terms, mobility, because I don't believe in societies without mobility. Democratic societies need mobility, because when you build a public museum, or where you build a healthcare system, a new healthcare center, you are paying that healthcare center with your taxes that you have paid. But if I don't assure you mobility to use and to commute and to go to that healthcare center, I'm not being democratic. So mobility is quite in the kernel, in the center of a democratic society. You need to assure all the services, all the facilities, everything in place. But then you need to assure availability of those resources and services. And to assure that availability, you need to assure mobility of each and everyone in your region or municipality. So mobility is something that I've been working, and it impacts in several aspects of our lives. It impacts in environmental issues, of course. It impacts in quality of your life in terms of time. Commuting is a time-consuming function of the city, but we may assure mobility, assuring that time is not time-consuming, but is a productive journey. So mobility impacts in several aspects of our lives. That's why I've implemented here in Cascais a mobility system. It's completely free. It was the first in the country. Almost 100 new buses, and that's something that I've been working for the last 2 terms. The other issue is education. As I've mentioned before, education is very important in my. I'm a very liberal guy, but I believe that the state must give something. A network of safety to all the citizens, and assure that each and every one of us has equal opportunities to achieve success. Saying this, the most important factor of success, despite your birth, your family, is school. And nowadays, public schools are not assuring that level playing field for each and every citizen. And that's a trend. Now you have more and more private schools. Here in Cascais is the county with the highest percentage of students in the private schools. More than 60% of our students are engaged in private schools.
And for sure also international schools as well.
International or private, international, all those schools. So more than 60%, and 40% of the students are engaged in public schools.
But you also have excellent public schools in Cascais.
Yes, but if the podcast allows me to ask you one question, what is the highest ranking of a public school in Cascais? The best one in the rankings, and we have 11 school centers, guess and give me one figure for a municipality such as Cascais, leading the pack in all these areas, what do you think would be the highest ranking for the best public school in Cascais?
I have no idea.
400.
It's 400 in the national.
The national, so 400. And the best private school here is in the top 10. We have 4 private schools in the top 20, and I could keep telling you these figures. And this is, I've studied in a public school, and never in my life I felt,
Here in Cascais.
here in Cascais, and never in my life I felt that I was in disadvantage comparing with all my friends here in Cascais that were in all these private schools. And that was 30 years ago. Nowadays, it's different. And that's something that we must work out and find new solutions to give a new push, a new momentum to the public school.
So let me ask you maybe a more personal question. You are the vice president of Cascais. You are teaching at university level here of SPE. You are also doing a PhD. You are a columnist. You have a radio program as well. So how many, and probably many more hobbies. And I know that you are also a family man. You just told us you have kids. How does your day look like? How does your day look like? It should be pretty hectic. And allow me to ask you, do you actually put your kids here in the public school?
No.
Okay.
That's something that have changed. So I've studied. All my families were a public school product, and the choice of myself and all of the family now is private schools.
In product, we have a saying which is eating your own dog food. So you are not eating your own dog food.
No. I'm eating my dog food because I'm living here in Cascais, and I say and keep saying that Cascais is the best place for you to live a day, a week, or a lifetime. So I'm eating that dog food.
I totally agree with you.
But I'm not eating on the dog food that says that public schools should give you all the tools to achieve success. And I must be fair. Nowadays, public school is not offering those tools, all those tools.
Okay, we'll be back to the public school. So just give us a glimpse of how your active life looks like. How what time in the morning do you wake up? Do you go for a run? What do you do?
No, I wake, being a father of 4, or 3 and a 4, so okay. You may imagine that.
I have 3 kids as well.
So I wake up at 5:30, 6 a.m. and the first steps, they are all sleeping. So those moments are very important for me. So I use those moments to read all the newspapers, see some podcasts. I'm a podcast guy. I'm a YouTube guy. So this new generation. So and this half an hour, 1 hour in the morning is very important for me. Then
keeping up with the news, making
everything.
Sure you see the world, how it's going.
I must do it. So,
right.
So I like to do it, but I must do it. And then my kids wake up, and then I help all the logistics of the breakfast and all that stuff. Then my wife works in the Portuguese bank in Lisbon, so she goes to Lisbon, and I take my kids to the school. So I have this. I'm blessed of living just 800 meters away from the municipality. So, and the school of my kids are 500 meters away from.
So you can actually walk.
I can walk. Sometimes I walk. Sometimes I come with car, and that's something that I will have to change for sure. Then my work is, as you have seen, just to set up this meeting. So it's huge because I have several hats. I'm the president of the foundation that owns the Nova School of Business and Economics, and I'm now engaged in the fundraising process for this new second wave of fundraising. So I have that hat. I have the hat of being deputy mayor here with all the subjects that I'm in charge. I have the hat of being the vice president of the tourism board of the entire Lisbon region. I'm also engaged in the NGO sectors on handicapped children, and all these, that's my daily basis. Then in the afternoon, my workouts are on the afternoon. I actually bought a Peloton. You know a Peloton?
Yeah.
Those,
so you
those
are
bikes,
doing Peloton at the end of the day? Or?
At the end of the day. So Peloton now is my best friend because I can schedule my workout, and then I must.
For how long have you been training on the Peloton?
2 months now, and
do you see the results? Do you see
no, of course, because I'm a bike guy. So
you are a bike guy.
But
are you doing the triathlon here in September?
No. I'm a bike guy, but I like to go to the hills and then to go to Guincho and all on the coastline. But Peloton gives me previsibility. So I know that I have that half an hour for a spinning class, and I go for the spinning class, and I go for a tour in Hawaii. That you know that Peloton, you can go to Hawaii and then and I have that half an hour with a guy that is helping me on my workout, and then I need to go to on weekend, on several days in the week I go to outdoors. I'm an outdoorsy guy, so Cascais has this mindset of outdoorsy, being an outdoorsy, but so then I have my kids again. They don't have homeworks yet, so it's just fun. My wife comes back from Lisbon, and that's my daily life. At night, being a politician. Last night, I just came from the south part of Lisbon, from Barreiro, that I've been invited to be for a talk on smart cities and the future of cities. So, and that's another dimension. So it's a very stretch day that starts at 5 to 6 a.m. and ends last night, ended at 1 o'clock in the next morning. So it's quite intensive, but I'm completely fulfilled with joy and
it's still you still have found time to author the book which you published last year, called Voltar a Acreditar na Política by Leia. And in the back cover, it reads the following. So Miguel has a clear vision for Portugal. He believes that the values that he defends, such as transparency and greater proximity between decision makers and citizens, are key to restoring interest in politics to the Portuguese people. Nicknamed a radical moderate, the social democrat, always with his eyes on the future, sets out on this book his ideas for a more competitive, balanced and fair country. In your book, you defend reforms for the education, health, and many other sectors for the Portuguese society. And when I was reading the book, I found that you were giving several times examples coming from the Netherlands. Why is that? You see that the Netherlands has a role model.
I think the first reason for that is because I'm developing my PhD at Rotterdam School of Management, so I have a very strong insight on the Netherlands' vision of life. One of the examples that I've mentioned in the book is the educational system in the Netherlands. So in the Netherlands, you only have public schools. It's a paradox because the Netherlands are
one of the most
liberal countries in the world. So these guys are so liberal, and they don't have private schools. Why? And I drilled down and saw and found out that these guys came to the conclusion that, again, education is the starting button of our lives. So if we give an edge to a part of the society, that part of the society will always win the race. If we level the playing field and everybody has the same tools to win and to achieve success, I'm increasing the probabilities of finding unicorns, of finding the very best, of finding the top tier ones, the top-notch ones, the best ones. So if we are working just with the niche of the society, the probabilities of finding the exceptional ones, the Einstein's momentum moments, are decreasing. So you increase the probability when you come to the bottom of the pyramid and give each and every one the same tools to achieve success. So in the Netherlands, you have only public schools. And how they support those public schools. If you have a public school in a very high-end and high-income neighborhood, they will have less subsidies from the central government. If you have a public school in a low-income neighborhood, they will have more subsidies from the central government. So you have all the public school systems, but the amount of subsidies that one school gets, comparing with the other school, is the neighborhood that they...
The model you defend in your book is a little bit different.
It's different because...
A number of foundations...
Of course. That's the model in the Netherlands. The model that I defend, because you can't do it in Portugal, but you close all the products, it's impossible. The model that I defend here is somehow a copy-paste of the model that you have nowadays in the Portuguese universities. Mm-hmm. The foundational model. Being myself a president of a foundation of a university, I know that this system gave the universities in Portugal an edge, and they are now competing in the world.
Especially Nova Spain.
Nova, our master in finance is the 14th in the world in the Financial Times rankings. Nova is one of the top 40 business schools in the world. So, but I can mention Instituto Técnico, Escolas Engenharia do Porto, Minho. All those schools are competing worldwide, and our researchers, our academic guys are competing all over the world. So that's possible because you came out with a very decentralized process. The Ministry of Higher Education is not engaged in the management of those schools on a daily basis. They are very decentralized. They have foundations supporting those universities, and then they can create partnerships with the private sector, synergical partnerships, and they can get money from the private sector, get talent from the private sector, and they are boosting the entire system. So I just brought that model to the local, our schools, creating foundations with groups of schools within the municipalities, create a foundation.
That's still a proposal that has not been...
No, of course. Yet. No.
Although, let me just maybe reframe this a little bit. So your book, the name of the book is, the title is Voltar a Acreditar na Política, so believe in politics again. And I guess, I don't know, maybe 25 or more years ago, when you became a member of the Partido Social Democrata, a center-right political party here in Portugal, what led you to believe in politics back then? Or, what led you to start into politics?
I think I already answered that question because I've always engaged in politics, knowing my grandfather history, talking about politics with my parents, my parents' friends. So I've read newspapers since I was 5 or 6. So I was completely engaged.
Why specifically the Partido Social?
Because in the end of the day, it's the most not fair. The term is not fair. Is the
best fit.
The model, that ideology that best fits my mindset. That is to say that I'm a liberal, but I think there's a rule for the state to regulate, to create that level playing field, to be a referee. So I don't believe in a total liberal process that the market will find out new solutions for the future of humankind. I believe in leadership. I believe in vision. I believe that the states must regulate, the state must give something to assure the enough tools for everybody to achieve success. So it's a mix between liberal in economic terms and knowing that the state has a role in the refereeing of this process.
Still, you majored in engineering from Super Técnico. You actually worked as an engineer. So you are a trained engineer, although you are now a full-time politician, like you said. But there is this new wave of engineers coming to prominent political roles. Mr. Carlos Moedas is an engineer himself, the current mayor of Lisbon, also one of the candidates to the presidency of your party, Luís Moreira de Silva, is an engineer. Is this the time for another kind of politician that is maybe more knowledgeable in technology, in sciences, in math, and more data-centric, if you will, by opposition to traditional profiles that have historically, at least here in Portugal, been dominated by people coming from law and humanities?
I don't think it's the time for that. Nowadays, data and technology is very important in all these public sector policies and policy-making processes, of course. But I don't believe that's the condition that you have to assure to be a good politician. Being a good politician is a curator. So to be a good curator, you don't need to be an expert in all those fields. You need good common sense. You need sensibility. You need to know history. Better than knowing all the technology terms, all the blockchain technology process, how it works out, more than knowing that Bitcoin and blockchain is not the same, and knowing all those dimensions. Better than that is knowing history. What happened before how did we came as a country, and we are here in 21st century, being a member of European Union, and how European Union started. What were the intentions of the founders, of the founding fathers of European Union? I think that's much more important, to have politicians with density, and density.
With cultural density.
Cultural. I'm not saying that you have to read 10 books a week to be a politician, but you must have a layer, a minimum layer of history, culture, geopolitical positioning, knowing and sensing your people. You are a good politician if you go outside and not work just on the office. Listen. You must be a good listener. All these dimensions are much more important than being an engineer, electrical one, mechanical one, or being an expert in all those stuff. Because now you are completely right when you say that nowadays we need new politicians, because there's something that I'm completely sure now. There's a generation that has been in charge of Portugal for the last 20 or 30 years that is not aware of the disruption that we are living nowadays, and we are actually living in the disruptive world, and the world is not the same. And they think that doing the same things in the parties as Cavaco did, Sá Carneiro did, and all these historical figures did, if they do the same, they will achieve the same results. They are not right. They are not right because the world has changed.
So let's go into that, Miguel. let's talk a little bit about, competition between cities for talent, and this new generation of talent that you now have, that is able to work from wherever they want, the so-called digital nomads. And here in Cascais, the council has recently launched an online campaign with a very cool video, I must say. I just watched it the other day and found it very curious. So why are you pitching Cascais to digital nomads? How do you see also the positioning of Cascais vis-a-vis other cities here in the region of, the metro region?
We see Cascais, we have a very high bar in terms of benchmark of Cascais. Actually, we don't think that I'm arrogant or snobbish guy, but I always say to my team that we are not competing with any counties in the metro area. We are competing with the south of France. We are competing with Florida. We are competing with the Hamptons. We are competing with Sausalito and San Francisco and San Jose and Santa Monica. So those are in Palo Alto, and those are our competitors. So the benchmark is that we are not competing with Sintra or whereas. The benchmark is that. So competing and pitching for the nomads, the digital nomads, are just a part of the pitches that I do every day. So we are pitching for the Bitcoin millionaires that now are moving to Cascais. I'm pitching to all the sailors that are bringing their boats here and sail here because we have one of the best regatta fields in the world. We are pitching for the guys that are looking just for hiking places and beautiful hills in the natural park. We are pitching for guys that want to be lecturers at Nova School of Business or that Hospitality Management School. We are pitching for guys that are moving from Lisbon and bring their kids here. We are pitching for retirees from France that are moving here because of the tax incentives of the Portuguese government. So we are pitching to all these guys, but pitching to them, that doesn't mean to have good Facebook and Instagram reels or videos. Those videos are wake-up calls, are to create awareness around the brand, but then we must cope with the promise. And if we are trying to deliver the best place to live for these guys to live, we must give them international schools, and we are trying to attract more and more international schools. 22 museums, and we need museums, a beautiful coastline, beautiful gardens, a good healthcare system, infrastructures, mobility infrastructures. So all these parts together to give something back to all these guys.
And for that, you have also been defending it in your book and in other forums that cities should have more competencies. Which competencies are you envisioning? And there is an ongoing process, if I understand right, of decentralizing some of these competencies to municipalities, not just Cascais. But since you have been so vocal about it, how is the process going vis-a-vis bringing some of those additional competencies to the municipality? And before I close this first part, let me ask you the second part of the question is, are you more of a municipalist or more of a regionalist? Because here in your book, you seem to be more of a municipalist than regionalist, if I understand correctly.
Mm-hmm. I'm a fan of the municipal model. Mm-hmm. So for the last 40 years, I think we have proof. We have a proof of concept that we know how to do things. And having Carlos Moedas in charge of Lisbon is for sure the proof that we can have the best. The best doesn't mean you have to be a minister or prime minister, you could be the best and be in charge of a municipality. And we also have proved that we know how to manage our schools, how to manage our transport system, our police department, our fire department, our culture, our social issues. So more and more competences are being given to the municipalities, and I think more and more could come. But with those competences must come freedom in terms of finding out new sources of income. We live in a country where the municipalities don't have a very loose framework trying to find our way of finding out new sources of income. What I'm saying is that municipalities now live namely from the taxes, both from companies and individuals, IRS and IRC, and then from two taxes that comes from real estate, that is IMT and IMI. So these are the four only taxes that roughly the municipalities live from. And I believe in a system more decentralized, with more competences, but municipalities taking part of VAT, being allowed to give part of the taxes back to investors that are coming, and we don't have those tools. I can't give you don't pay taxes for 10 years because you are one of the top investors that are coming to the municipality. I can't do it because we are still living in a mindset of 40 years ago that municipalities are, and the local politicians are those guys with big mustaches and smoking the cigars, and we are not that anymore. I'm using. Do you know that I'm always? I don't use tie. I'm a very down-to-earth guy, but I'm a well-prepared guy. I know the world. I know what I'm doing. So, in the end of the day, please, we already have proof that we can do it. Then give us the other part of the cake. That is, okay, you have this, but we need the other part.
Radically changing the system with regions. You rather let's dive into a more municipalist solution, give more competencies to specific municipalities.
Yes, but I also have a second dimension of this rationale, that is to have in Portugal 4 regions in the interior area.
For the interior
area, because otherwise you can't fight back this unbalanced country. So I believe in a region in Algarve, in Alentejo, in Nas Beiras and Trás-os-Montes. Those municipalities are tiny in terms of budget, not in terms of territory. They are tiny in terms of budget, in terms of demography. So they need to gain critical mass. So the best way to do so, and not merging municipalities, that's impossible for the country. You can't merge Évora with Beja. Right. You can't merge
because of historical reasons.
Of course. So if you can't do that, that could be one way of doing this. You must create a layer that gives some critical mass for these regions. So if you have all the Alentejo together, with Alqueva being the driving force in terms of economic and in terms of the agriculture sector and all that stuff, and the universities thinking on, if you have the Alentejo all together, you have critical mass in terms of budget, in terms of human resources, in terms of talent. Otherwise, you will have municipalities, but not with enough critical mass as you have in Cascais.
Absolutely. So you are a politician, but like we have said before, you have been trained as a technologist. And when I was preparing for this podcast, I spoke with your ex-head of future, Marcos Pinheira, and he told me that you really grasp things quickly because you have first principle thinking, also called reasoning from first principles, which is you break down a problem into its fundamental building blocks, and then you start asking powerful questions and getting down to basic nuggets of truth, right? So how are you using technology to improve people's life in the municipality today? Just give us a couple of examples, not exhaustive.
The first and more obvious one is mobility. So I've done a brainstorm 6 or 7 years ago on the issue of mobility. And we have created the first app in the entire world with all the mobility modes all together, from the bike sharing to the buses to the parking. Mobi Cascais was the first one that came out of a brainstorm session. Those that I like to create all the and find out all the atoms of the molecule. And solving atom by atom and then creating a new model. And Mobi Cascais came out, now is in place. You can pay your parking with my app. You can use our buses with the app. You see in real time the bus in the app. Because I've seen that. You have Uber for the last 10 years or so, I don't know. But I've seen real time buses in an app 15 years ago in Harvard. So, and in the Harvard campus, you have an app, and you see the bus that connects the entire campus, and you see in real time 15 years ago. So you have to know the world, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel on a daily basis. You just have to be that world awareness and know that that there's a world outside, and you must listen and learn from that world. So I've put technology serving citizens of Cascais, creating a marketplace for all the mobility modes in place, and with all these together and with technology behind it, now it's safer, faster, easier for you to use public transportation, public transport in Cascais. That's an example. Another example is our control center. Cascais Cockpit was the first in the class to create a predictive control center where AI is working with all the sensors that we have in place and tries to anticipate the problems that we're going to have in the city in half an hour and 1 hour from now. So technology can help you. Technology is not an end in itself. Smart cities are not a new term. I always say that Cascais is a smart city for 658 years. As you may know, Cascais is 658 years old. So we are a smart city for 658 years, because we were smart 600 years ago. The pirates.
It's King John II?
No, after that, Dom Manuel.
The first.
Let me tell you this short story. The guys that used to live here in the 16th century, they created fireplaces on the coastline
to communicate.
No. They were the pirates. The Cascais locals were the pirates.
Okay.
They created all those fireplaces in the coastline, trying to fake the Lisbon city. And all the boats, the sailing boats that were arriving to Lisbon, full of silver, gold, and spices, they must go through here. So they saw the fireplaces, and GPS, it's not new technology. So those guys at night, seeing all those fireplaces,
they would approach the coast.
They would approach the coast. That's Lisbon, and then that's why you have all the boats sunk here in our coastline. So we were smart back then on piracy, but we were the most the smartest pirates back then. So being smart is trying to solve people's problems with easy solutions, with common sense, creating the sewage system as the Romans did, and avoid diseases, creating water supply systems, creating roads, and that's technology of 2,000 years ago. So technology is a term that nowadays, and smart city, you are immediately connected to sensors and near field communication and RFID and all those technology and blockchain and that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But smart city is not that, because I don't need all those technologies. For instance, in Penella or in the Guarda.
I don't resist asking you the question. If you have 3 months to take 3 months just to learn, and you had to choose to learn a specific new technology or whatever you want to invest those 3 months in, where would you invest your time to learn something you don't know so well? Right?
AI, machine learning.
AI, machine.
I've studied AI and machine learning,
and robotics as well.
25 years ago, and now
it's a revolution.
It's a revolution, and I would like to go again on that.
I'm just going to let João do some questions regarding RAPTOR and mobility. And João, if you don't mind, I know this is kind of hotbed style, but it is what it is.
Okay.
This is the. All right, there you go, my friend. Just speak to the mic.
All right. So thank you, Andre, for the invitation to participate. My background is mobility, and the topic that Andre challenged me to focus on is mobility, because we knew that how much engaged you were with it. And with Productized is cooperating with the city of Cascais in this new RAPTOR program, which comes from the European Institute of Technology. I will just throw you some questions on the mobility topic. You already mentioned some of them. But anyway, maybe I will start with the RAPTOR story. RAPTOR is an open innovation program where we involve startups to try to solve specific problems on urban mobility. And the specificity of RAPTOR compared to other open innovation programs was that we should define very clearly what are the challenges that we are trying to define. So in this process, before we made the proposal to EIT, we had lots of talks with the staff from the municipality, trying to define those challenges, and I guess that was part of the success that we had in the call. But first, we had a meeting with you, and maybe starting by the end, we asked you, what do you think would be the main challenge here for mobility? And you told us we should try to increase demand for the services that we have created. We have made so much effort to create new services, to improve them, and now we have to attract demand. So would you like to explain why this challenge?
Because I've doubled the amount of kilometers produced every year. So we came from 3.5 million kilometers produced a year to more than 7 million. With new buses, with CCTV on board, with free Wi-Fi, with charging plugs for your phone, with everything that you can imagine. Previsibility with an app that tells you in real time where the bus is, everything. And then the demand, so the supply doubled, and with all these quality, supply in value, but supply also in quality. But on the demand side, we just have increased 10%. And adding to this, knowing that at the metropolitan area, also the demand has increased, not as much, but has increased. But that's a paradox that I don't have an answer. Maybe RAPTOR can help us. Maybe some other academic partners may help us, and consultants may help us. you never had as much cars as you have nowadays at the highway. Never before. Records, all-time records. So with more people using public transports in the metropolitan area, with a forfeit for the region, as you know, with the card, with 20 years you go wherever you want. So more people are using our public transports, but more people is using the car. So what is happening? I have several answers for that. I see more cars with a single driver, more now after COVID. That's a new dimension. So a car that used to have 3, maybe those 2 are on the public transport system, but the car is still there. So it's not decreasing, you are not taking cars out of the system by adding more people on the public transport. So 2 came to the public transport, but the owner of the car that could be one answer. Another answer is some companies now are working on a 50-50 base. So you work 15 days on office, you work 15 days on your home. And and I've asked several guys that are on this new way of doing things, and they've told me that I used to use public transports to go for entire months, but now that I'm just going half a month to the office, I prefer to use the car. So for the entire months, they would use public transport. Because of the prices. But for 15 days, for me, it's good to use the car. So I'm always inquiring. So I need that. It's not an academic assessment, but with these insights, I have the sense of what is happening. So maybe the answer is on some of these issues, but RAPTOR must help us. That was the challenge that I gave you back. So with all the investment that we are putting, we are not taking advantage of that in terms of emissions, because more cars we have more buses because I've doubled the supply, but I'm still having more cars, even more cars. So in the end of the day, I have more emissions. So this is a paradox. This is crazy. What we must do to work on the demand side, close some parts of the city, carbon zero zones, create tolls within the historic parts of the cities, more taxes on owning cars, IUC, Imposto Único de Circulação, the taxes on the cars that we use. So what we should do to help on the demand side?
I have a story. When I studied in Técnico some years ago with Professor José Manuel Viegas, he told us, and André mentioned a lot the role of engineers, but he himself as an engineer, he made a critique that the engineers tended to focus on supply, not demand, not in understanding the users. And you mentioned some elements of the routines of people that affect how they decide. And indeed, that's what we kind of tried to do that in the definition of challenge, to be more in the minds of people, to have a more product-oriented approach. You already mentioned about Mobi Cascais. I had a question related to how people reacted to it. So how did the common citizen of Cascais react and interact with Mobi Cascais? Do you think it produced a major effect, or that something else is needed to?
More is needed to do, of course, but now we have more than 25,000 daily users. So on all the modes, because you may use the app just to pay the parking. You may use the app just to use our public transports. You may use the app just to use our bike sharing. In the whole, we have more than 25,000 daily users. So, but we need to do more for sure. And that's another challenge. That is
another specific one. Cascais was, as in many other things, including mobility, an innovator in Portugal in bike sharing system. It was perhaps the first large-scale bike sharing system. But this implies a major change in culture and in routines, everything.
Again,
how has been the process in Cascais?
That's a good question, but let me tell you a story about that, because we are both engineers, and again, I was working on the supply and not on the demand. So I've envisioned a system, openware system. So our dock stations are agnostic in terms of the bike that you may use. So we have created, we have asked SAIA to work with us, but the vision came from us. In Lisbon, you have a docking station that works with that bike. Our docking stations work with your bike, with everyone's bike. So, because you have a keychain and then you use it, and it's NFC and the RFID enabled, and then you come with your phone and unlock the bike. You may put the bike of the system, or you may put your track or your specialized or what bike you would use. And I've envisioned a system where I've put docking stations all over the place, create bike lanes all over the place, and then people would use their own bikes and our own bikes from the system or from the municipality. And that didn't happen, actually. Again, demand. That's why I'm so obsessed with demand now. Because for a politician, you need to supply what demand wants. Again, we can be Steve Jobs and create products that no one even thought about having them, but we may fail, and we must work on the demand side. Otherwise, these kind of projects will fail. So, but I'm not afraid of fail. I have a fail culture here in the municipality. So everybody knows that 1 out of 10 will work. Be completely comfortable. We want to be early adopters. We want to keep this DNA of being early adopters. We like to invest, being the first ones to do and to approach new challenges and new ways to solve things. And we know that 1 out of 10 will work. That's fair. And that's the cost of being early adopter. The other option would be to be the last one to adopt the technology, wait for everyone to use it, and then choose. We are not those guys. We are the guys that are leading the pack. That's why our pitch to digital nomads, it's easier, because here they know that they can test new technologies. The municipality will co-invest in new technologies, even if they are not proven. We are creating now with a Portuguese company a plant to generate hydrogen. It's a Madeira company that came out of the university. They are using plasma and transforming waste into hydrogen. And the byproduct is a carbon that you may use to agriculture. It's never been tested. So we are supporting we are backing the research. So, and the plant will be built here. So these guys will use our waste. We are paying to build the plant. It's a small plant, of course. They will use plasma to incinerate the waste, and then they will create hydrogen, and then the byproduct will be a carbon substance to use in agriculture. And we are supporting that. It may fail or it may work. we don't know, but we are. That's our DNA.
Yeah, maybe another question more related to the institutional side. Cascais took the option to take to be the owner of its own transport system, to have its own transport authority, and this is unlike, the many municipalities of the metropolitan area of Lisbon. Why did you do this, and how is it going? Because it's a very recent thing.
We did it because we know the metropolitan area, and we know that we could be faster than them. And we were more ambitious than them. We wanted to be completely free. We want to double the supply. We want to have brand new buses with CCTV and all that stuff. And the metropolitan area doesn't want. The buses that they are using are not new. They didn't double the supply. So and we knew that we could be faster than them in the implementation of the process. And we have a rule here in Cascais that is, if the municipality, in a level playing field, with all the capex and everything in the business plan, if in the end of the day we can take out a ton of waste at the same price or less than the private one, we'll do it. If the private one is better than us, the private one will do it. In the transportation is the same. So if we can operate at the same price or less per kilometer as the private one, with all the capex, because sometimes we don't do the calculations well. So in the end of the day, we must put all the capex with everything in the business plan, and comparing both sides. If we do better, we do it. So that's something that is very good for the institutional side of the municipality, to be always trying to be better and better and better, and look for more efficiency within the processes. And that's good for the private ones, because those guys know that we know how they are making the calculations. We know within the process how they are putting the gas price, the braking systems that they have to change every 1,000 of kilometers. So we know the bit and the byte of the process. So that's the best way to contract with the private ones. So we know everything on your side. What is your cost? So
my next question was
that was the mindset.
So you have a new public transport contract with the Spanish company Martin. It can be tricky sometimes, the public transport contracts, the flexibility that it gives you to change the system, to innovate. So how are you conciliating this willingness to innovate, to experiment, with having to manage a contract like this?
It's easy because I'm creating a fund of 2.5 million euros that the Spanish guys bring for innovation. For the 6 years, I have 2.5 million euros for innovation. And who chooses where to invest? The municipality. So that's a fund within the contract that they've put the money here, and we have that money for innovation. First thing. Second thing, all the network is designed by us. They just have to put buses in the territory and give a figure for the kilometer. Everything from the ticketing, from the sensors, from the network, everything comes from us. So we have all the tools, and then we have the nuclear bomb in the contract. That is to say that in every moment of the contract, we may get out all the buses by the value in the balance sheet of the private one at any moment of the contract. So again, this is a game changer. So if in 3 years' time we'll see that we'll do it better than you, bring the buses in. We keep the buses and we'll do the operation. So bye. The marriage is handed here. So that's another solution. So we have created. We are not in this contract completely close and strict to the contract. We have several escape valves that gives us some possibilities to innovate, to bring the process to the municipality, to have that 2.5 million euros to invest in new technologies, in software, in sensors and all that stuff. We manage all the network. So everything, I think we have enough space for innovation.
Okay, so I guess my last question before I bring it back to André, I will get back to something that he approached, and I spoke to several staff here, both for mobility, but not only, and they mentioned about you that what you already said, that you are okay with taking risks, with failing, with testing. They also said that you get very much involved at the technical level. And now you have the example that everyone tells about Elon Musk, the CEO who is the engineer. I have the perception that this might have, this attitude, which goes from a long time, might have crucially influenced the way, the culture Cascais is working and is approaching all these issues, but in particular the mobility, which is the one I know. So it's not so much a question you could comment, but maybe to contradict you, I think you were downplaying that kind of role of what the engineer, the politician that gets involved in the technicalities, the devil is in the details. It's my impression that this is really percolating into the structure. So yeah, maybe you want to comment. And
maybe you are right.
Okay, and one thing about this, André, I don't know if you want to pick on this, is André is talking about a lot whether cities should be more product driven. And we were talking about supply and how much understanding the demand is lacking. And I would launch this idea that if cities take a more product-driven approach, which is user-centric, apart from the very understanding of how people behave, and tests, will be a way forward. Yeah. So, André, back to you.
We're almost done here. Don't worry.
Sorry.
Thanks. Well, great questions regarding mobility and still on the technological side. So one of the other apps, Miguel, that you guys have here in Cascais is Fix Cascais, and that's the city reporting app. So that that's obviously but just people listening to this. It's the app that people here in Cascais, the citizens, use to report situations that need to be fixed in the city council. However, the app on the App Store is rating quite low. It's like, from last time I checked, last week, it's 2 out of 5, with comments including that geolocation does not work properly, that the app asks the tax number, which is rather pointless for a complaint, if you allow me, and that complaints are not properly addressed then by the city council. I guess this obviously is very subjective. So what's your strategy to improve the digital ecosystem of the city? Of course, Mobi Cascais, I think it's very well understood, but specifically for this kind of apps like Fix Cascais.
That question is very good, because we had a huge discussion here on that issue, because Fix Cascais is a very old app. We were the first, again, early adopters, and the first release of the app didn't work. So geolocation didn't work, several things didn't work, and we were for 2, 3, 4 years working with different providers. Now Fix Cascais is 8 years old or more. And the discussion within the municipality was to create a new app to avoid all the legacy in terms of rating.
So-called technical debt.
Or keeping with the app. And the answer was keep with the app. Because if the culture is to live well with failure, we must be completely transparent. That didn't work. And we have invested more and more and more. And now Fix Cascais is the base for everything that we do. Because it's not used just by citizens. It's used within the municipality. If within the municipality, when we need to report something to the other departments, within the municipality, we use Fix Cascais now. So Fix Cascais is like the backbone of the municipality now. And but of course we have that legacy, but that's important. We are not trying to do it as the restaurants do in TripAdvisor and try to create and disguise. No, that's true. And didn't work. And I was one of the guys that I was completely pissed off. I'm sorry for my poor English. So, but I was completely crazy because that didn't work. And I'm a tech guy. So why geolocation doesn't work? Why you are asking for the taxpayer number? So. And all these issues are very, very clear issues here.
So I know that until recently you had a chief futurist office here working directly with you. Do you think that it's time for a city like Cascais to have maybe a chief product officer to lead the digital product transformation and to help the mayor and herself define the strategy, the long-term vision and oversight of and also the management of the digital products that you now have serving the citizens of the council?
I think maybe you are right, because municipalities must have this mindset of a private company, because we have several products that need.
And when I spoke with your ex-chief futurist office, he was a little bit skeptical, not because of the actual proposition, but because of the means of what even a rather relatively rich city council like Cascais here in Portugal, not having the means to be able to capture talent from the IT sector.
Okay, that's an issue, but I think one of the lacks in Portugal is product design. We have good engineers, we have good managers that know how to create a business plan, a fundraising process, rounds of investors, HR strategy, marketing strategy, everything. But then what is missing in this triangle is product design. That's a Portuguese problem, because we have good engineers creating new solutions, apps and products, commas, and then that doesn't mean that that's not a product. You need more Steve Jobs to create new products that, as I've mentioned before, people didn't even dream that they would need that product. So, and that's something that I'm working on in Nova School of Business and Economics, is to create a place, an institution, where you get the best engineering that we have in Portugal. It doesn't mean Nova, it means Nova, but also Técnico, and also Philp, and also Minho, and also Aveiro, and also everyone, the best. Then you have management, and Nova, and of course, being in Nova brings the management, all the HR strategy, all all the management side, and then you have to think about product design. And I think, of course, Marco is right when he's saying that it's very hard for a municipality to attract people, because people in these kind of fields are money driven. If you need a data scientist, you need to pay them.
Sometimes they are also mission driven.
Of course, and that's what I've always saying to Marco, that there are guys that are mission driven, even data scientists that are mission driven, even crypto guys that are mission driven. You have mission. You must. It's harder. It is, but we may find out those guys in the end of the day. And I think that would be very important for these kind of things that we were talking about, demand and supply, because in the end of the day, it was an idea that the deputy mayor had to create an agnostic dock station system for the bike sharing system in the municipality. And I thought that was a product, but it wasn't a product.
Miguel, why didn't you prototype it first, just to see whether there was?
And it was if you see the prototype, you would be crazy.
No. When I see, I'm not speaking about the industrial design.
No,
I'm speaking
created
about
a prototype industrialized, and then
a small test bed here with maybe a couple of docking stations or more, just to understand demand and supply.
You are right.
Before actually launching full scale.
Yes, I may explain to you. We have we had a prototype on the industrial side. Then we have decided to go mass market, full scale. Why? Because the downside of the system would be you guys don't use it for your own bikes. But in the end of the day, we would have our own bikes to use.
Right.
So the downside would be the idea of the deputy mayor
is stupid.
It's stupid. But in the end of the day, you have a bike sharing system. So why not do it? So these docks work as well as in Lisbon. It's not as easy as in Lisbon, because in Lisbon you came out with your bike and
exactly, there is a click system.
Here, and you have to go with the key lock, and then.
So in retrospect, you would do it differently.
Maybe. That's why I'm with you on the product, chief product design or something like that here in Cascais.
Okay, very well. I'm actually surprised and very happy about it. Just to come to a conclusion, if you had a superpower to change anything you wanted in the government policy, national level, what would it be? Just one thing.
To stop, to something that I would change.
Yeah, that you would change because
education.
We spoke about it.
Education for sure.
A less centralized system.
Less centralized. The teachers should be employees of the municipalities or the foundations within, and not a centralized system with all the teachers.
Finally, Miguel, what words of advice would you give your younger self, Miguel, just before going to your bachelor's degree in electrical and computer engineering at Instituto Técnico? Your 18-year-old version of yourself.
I've loved my degree, and it gave me tools that, in terms of mindset, in terms of everything. So, but with my kids now, I would say I would need, and unfortunately in Portugal that isn't a way of doing things that I needed back then. More dimensions on my degree on history, on public affairs, on the political side, science, political science, all those dimensions. In the United States, you may do a minor and you have several subjects on several things, and then you go and deep dive on a topic. Here, I've been there for 5 years, then I was lecturing there, doing my master and then PhD there. If I could go back, I would be thinking on new things and other things. It's much better now to have a full spectrum mindset, able of coping and adapting to a very disruptive world. Because if you, it's better to have tools to be very elastic and plastic than to be an expert in a specific area. So that would be something that I would.
Since we are here in Cascais, do you have any secret spot recommendation to our listeners that want to know more about the region?
Just go to the top of Pedra Amarela and be there for 5 minutes.
Okay.
And
Enjoy.
that's it. 5 minutes in the top of Pedra Amarela, and you will see Cascais.
Very well. Thank you, Miguel. It was great having you with us.
Thank you.
Very insightful conversation. Thanks for joining our Productized podcast. So if you enjoyed, please give us your review on Spotify podcast and share this episode with friends and colleagues. We also have show notes and more episodes at our Medium channel. Join the community. We will share links about what we spoke here today. Thank you. Have a great day. Thanks.